Oh, relax, Cotton. We won't have any new monsters here until the expansion. But I want new monsters now! Ladies, gentlemen, and monsters of all ages, the Monster Hunter spin-off games over the last few years have been getting a ton of extra love, effort, and budget put into them as well. Monster Hunter Now was a mobile game that originally released in September of 2023 with only 13 monsters in its roster at the time, all of these being creatures from Monster Hunter World specifically, and at its launch there were also only 6 of the weapon types available. I was invited to an event at the end of that year where they first showed off new weapon types post-release for the first season, which was really cool. I got to talk to them and learn their design philosophy a little bit about the interesting intricacies of trying to make Monster Hunter weapons translate to a mobile control scheme. But not too long after that was when I ended up stopping my journey playing the game and stopped using Monster Hunter Now, mostly because of the microtransactions and the nature of the monetization and how it worked. It just eventually ended up outweighing the fun that I was having with the game. And at that time, I basically stopped paying attention to the game. But that was a little bit more than 2 years ago now, and since then they have been adding so much stuff to this game. And it's not just like the sheer amount of stuff that's interesting too, even though there is a lot of stuff that they have done over this time, but also just the silly, wacky, or over-the-top direction they've gone with a number of things. And I want to be clear that I don't mean that in a bad way. In fact, I find all of this stuff extremely intriguing as like a divergent evolution of what Monster Hunter can be. And it's a result of that I just sort of wanted to take a few minutes here to show you guys the extent of how far Monster Hunter Now has gone, because I guarantee that you wouldn't guess it unless you play the game yourself, of course. So, to start off with the quantity of things to begin with, again, at launch of the game, which was about 2 years and like 4 months ago, there were 13 large monsters and 6 weapon types available. As of right now, the start of 2026, there are 13 weapon types, every mainline weapon option except for Insect Glaive specifically, they don't have that one yet, so they've expanded the weapon roster more than doubly in that time, and there are also now 61 large monsters in this game. Yes, 61, which is only 10 less than the Iceborne expansion, including the base World Monster roster too. There's creatures from Rise Sunbreak now, there's creatures from Monster Hunter Wilds now as well, added relatively recently, and while at launch the deadliest monster was like Legiana, essentially, there are now a number of Elder Dragons on the roster as well. And even past that, Monster Hunter Now has its own unique monster variation types, one called Riftborne monsters and one called Riftcharged. Riftborne monsters, then, are special enhanced versions of a monster that come from purple portals. They have colorful flames surrounding them in combat. They have a generally applying reduction to damage done to most of their body, which makes it hard to deal damage to them, but they get one specific body part that is very, very weak to damage. It is a weak hit zone, and it glows blue to show you that in combat. You can pop that body part if you do enough damage to remove the damage reduction effect from the rest of their body, and the reward for these monsters compared to normal monsters is mostly just more materials, but it's still super interesting to me as a concept regardless of the actual rewards. There's also a second stage of this, essentially as a further unique monster variation added much more recently called Riftcharged monsters. These work relatively similarly, but they don't have a glowing part that you can abuse and break to weaken them. Instead, they have a sort of shield that just happens to weaken all of your attacks, and some weapons do extra damage to this shield, but once you break the shield, you can then do normal damage to them. So there's a thing like if you use astalos weapons or khezu weapons, you will deal bonus damage to the barrier right now and break it faster during the current events. These Rift-charged monsters are directly tied to the base defense feature. Yes, base defense, you heard that right, but it's probably not what you're thinking when you hear those words. The game itself works around real-world locations, and so the base that you defend is just a location that is defined in the world itself. You can sign up for hunts that count towards defending that base if you are nearby it, and the idea is that they are meant to be worked on by multiple players in an area working together. During set times of the month, Rift-charged monsters will spawn, and they are the big opportunity to tally up defense points at this event. Defense points are the marker of how well you do over a base defense time period, and that defines your rewards at the end of it as well. Past that, there is a system that I don't even fully understand as it is a bit complex called driftsmelting. This is a super duper hefty RNG mechanic where you can put a specific material into a piece of equipment, and then after you have walked long enough, it will then activate, and what it can do when it activates is it can add new skills to your equipment, it can replace the skills that already existed on it, just completely delete it and replace it with a new one, or it can just delete the old skill without actually adding anything new. And you can have up to 10 skills added on to a piece through this system. This system then is obviously, it's a ton of randomness, a ton of RNG. It is an absolutely massive grind fest with lots of potential for things to go wrong along the way. And it has some very interesting results too as a part of this system, is that they made skills that only exist in this system and you can't get them any other way. And they tend to be quite unusual too. But the thing is, that's not exclusive to the Driftstone exclusive skills, the driftsmelting exclusive skills either, because with the amount of content they have put in this game, they've also had plenty of new skills on equipment, and some of them are absolutely wacky in the best of ways. Headstrong increases damage if you go a long enough period of time without evading. Balloon Charge is exclusive to the balloon weapons, which were a unique thing that they did, and this just makes those weapons expand and deal more damage after you've charged your special skill, which is hilarious as a concept to me, just literally balloon weapons that get bigger during the fight. There's stuff like Critical Ferocity, which decreases affinity and gives a chance for a massively boosted damage attack on negative crits instead of damage reduction from negative crits. There's Bleeding Edge. This reduces your damage taken while you are bleeding, but it also increases your affinity by a hefty amount while you are bleeding, and then also lets you start every hunt bleeding and reapply bleed to you during the hunt too, so you can keep this active purposefully, essentially similar to how Frenzy works in the mainline games with some slight differences. There's a skill called Pursuit, which increases damage to a monster with broken parts, which isn't like crazy out there, but I love the idea of it, and I'd love to see this in a mainline game as just increased damage to broken parts as a skill, so that if you're playing something like Hammer, for example, you break a monster's head, but you still want to keep hitting the head because that's the part you're supposed to hit, and now you get further reward for doing it by increasing your damage for focusing that one part over and over, and I think that would be a cool idea of a way to let players specialize. Special Insurance is a really funky skill. This one prevents the special skill gauge from depleting during a feint, and instead it makes you gain gauge when you die, almost like a weird twisted version of Fortify that affects your special gauge instead of your just general stats. There's Valor, which increases attack and special gauge whenever a monster roars, and to be clear, I don't know that this is how it works in this game, but I find the idea of a stacking damage increase that goes up every time a monster roars to be quite interesting as an idea for mainline games, like a variation of increased damage the longer the hunt goes, but tying it to something that has it make some level of sense. And then of course, some monsters roar more often than others. There's some ways to manipulate roaring too and make it happen more often, so it's just a fun concept of a skill to bring to mainline games to me. There's Rude Awakener, another one that isn't too out there, but I love the idea of it, as it basically increases the wake up hit damage modifier, which is a perfect thing to increase viability of sleep status builds, and to my knowledge, at least the status builds are quite good in Monster Hunter right now. Morph Boost is a very cool one too, which is just increased damage for short duration after a morph attack, or after you change into demon modes using dual blades. And honestly, one of the things that I think I like most about these skills is how much they are made to apply to multiple different weapons, even more than you might think they should. Like this one easily could have just not affected dual blades at all, but they decided to do that because they thought it would be fun. This also applies to stuff like Final Shot, which increases the damage of the last ammo in a magazine with either of the bowguns, but also with gunlance ammo, and also with charge blade files of all things. And they easily could have made this just the guns, but they didn't. They made it include as many things as they could, and they did the same thing with evading reload as a skill, which is a high chance to reload when evading and applies to charge blade and gun lance as well as the guns too. Basically, they've created new potential playstyles for weapons by including them in skills that normally you wouldn't expect them to, and I love that they're willing to do that, and I love the results of it too. They've also got unique monster related skills in the game too, mostly for elder dragons, like Nergigante's skill, for example, stops you from gaining special gauge on regular attacks, but also increases all damage that you do. Past that, there's a bunch of other good stuff that they've done, like for the weapons, they've added alternate playstyles, sort of. They're essentially like these switch skills for Monster Hunter Rise and Sunbreak, but just implemented slightly differently, and they've done that to just make the weapons have more variety available and change what the actual sort of meta playstyle is every season, which I think is a really cool concept. Honestly, that's pretty much all this is though. I'm just a little bit awestruck by what Monster Hunter now has become. I don't know that I'm going to start playing the game again because I'd have the same apprehensions about the monetization system that made me drop the game 2 years ago to begin with, but even so, it is cool seeing just how much the game has grown in that time, and the specific way that it's grown into its own special flavor of the Monster Hunter formula with unique monster variations, unique hunt types, unique mechanics, unique playstyles for the weapons that we already know and love, and a lot of interesting skills that are exclusive to the game too, some of which I genuinely would love to see come to the mainline series with some slight adjustments to them, of course. That's it for today then, everyone, just a sort of deeper dive and exploration into the current state of Monster Hunter now as of January 2026. I love Monster Hunter, and I love that even Monster Hunter games that I don't personally play can bring me this much enjoyment just by experiencing them like second hand, basically. And I hope you've all enjoyed coming along on that ride with me here. And feel free to let me know your own thoughts on all of this in the comments down below. Like if you liked the video, subscribe with the notification bell for more, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, until next time, stay sweet.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.